So, in many ways, how then does Adler use his experience to write novels? Or even, why does he use his experience to write novels? I think is an interesting question in terms of Adler. When he came to Theresienstadt, he said to himself very quickly, I am going to do two things. I am going to record this experience in a scholarly manner, and I am going to record this experience in a poetic manner. And he went on to do just that. During his time there, and subsequently while working at the Jewish Museum in Prague, he gathered as many documents as he could possibly find, the most common everyday kinds of documents, administrative documents. His wife, Gertrude Klepetar, was head of the laboratory. She was a doctor in Theresienstadt, so she had access to a lot of official documents, mundane kinds of, sort of run-of-the-mill things that gave a full picture of the strange world that was Theresienstadt, which was very much a city, a small city. It had a culture of its own. It had the arts. There were operas, classical music was performed and written in Theresienstadt. Painting, a lot of paintings have survived from Theresienstadt. A lot of artists were there, and so it had very much a live kind of culture going on. The second thing was to record it artistically, and he did so in poems while he was in Theresienstadt. Adler wrote 132 poems while he was in Theresienstadt, and his collected poems have just been published, which run to 1,200 pages over the course of his life. He wrote some 11 collections of poetry, some of which were published by very small presses, many of which were not published. And he was not very well known as a poet even when he was alive. After the war, he set out, as Liliana was saying, to write a scholarly book on Theresienstadt, which was eventually published in 1955, Theresienstadt 1941 to 1945, and was one of the first key books to look at the Holocaust experience with social science methods. And Adler was very much had expertise in these methods, and it's very detailed. It runs to 1,000 pages as well, and it was a very important and seminal text of its day, and still is. It's just been reissued in a new edition, and will be actually appear in English within the next 2 or 3 years. Not from myself, but from other translators. My understanding is that Cambridge University Press is going to be publishing it later on. He also set out to write novels. Between 1947 and 1961, Adler writes 6 novels. Most of them run between 300 and 600 pages. Panorama runs to about 450 pages. How he did this, I don't know. He had an amazing ability to sit himself in a chair and to produce work. And he mined his own life. He used the material of his own life to write his novels. Panorama takes place in 10 different chapters, 10 different scenes from the life of its protagonist, Joseph Kramer. And there are no connections between these scenes. You see Joseph at 5 years old, you see him at 8 years old, you see him at 12 years old, 15, 18, all the way up to about 32 or so. And the conceit of the book is the panorama, which is the predecessor of the cinema. You went into a sort of hexagonal wooden box and postcards of different scenes of the world, the Great Pyramids or Niagara Falls or the Leaning Tower of Pisa or something like that would pass by, a little bell would ring, and Joseph presses his nose up to the glass when his mother takes him to this, and he's fascinated by these far-off places. And then the novel unfolds in 10 different, if you will, postcards from his life, chapters from different components of his life. It starts in World War I, and we see a lot of strife in his family, which happened in Adler's life. Things don't generally go that well in the family. There's a lot of worry about what's happened to the men who have gone off to war. Some of them die, of course. Some return home wounded. The mother is quite anxious because she aspires to be a doctor, but she's not allowed to be. Adler's own mother suffered from bipolar disease and was deported to Auschwitz for that very reason as well. In the novel, as well as in Adler's life, he's sent out to a foster family in the countryside to escape the anxieties of the family. And this is a place called Umlowitz in the novel. I'm just going to read you a paragraph. He stays with a family called the Neumanns, who run a grocery store, and he loves it. He loves being in the countryside, he loves the family, and he loves just all the activity of the grocery store, and here's a description of it. Herr Neumann's store smells of all his goods, a sweet, pungent smell that Joseph likes very much. Up front, the store is well lit, in back it's darker, so that an oil lamp is always kept burning there, because the electric light works mostly just at night. Rudolph saying that they had done a bad job in designing the power station, for it runs on an oil turbine, and one can never get enough oil, nor is it economical, for electricity is still much too expensive. Some people have no electric lights whatsoever, while others do indeed, though they rarely use them and prefer to buy oil for their lamps or candles. Herr Neumann not having a single electric light in his entire house, not even upstairs in the living quarters, for one hardly spends much time there, except to sleep. Everyone instead spending time in the kitchen, which is quite large. Rudolph says that the power station should have been designed much more practically to use water power, but no one thought of it, and now it's too late, and many years will pass before someone decides to build a power station that uses water. And so an oil lamp burns in the store, Leopold always having to fill it with oil, clean the wick, keep the lamp in good working order. Each morning Leopold sweeps up in the store, fills a large bucket of water, then takes the funnel he uses to fill the oil or vinegar, and plunges it deep into the water, holding his thumb over the hole as he walks through the store and behind the shelves to spray water in arcing lines that look like lots of off-kilter bicycle wheels, after which he takes wood shavings and strews them around, the floor as clean as it gets, for it is always gray and greasy. And that's it. It's just the scene as captured through the lens of the consciousness of an 8-year-old boy who loves this place, how he describes the people, how he talks about what the stories that he overhears, how they debate about the power station, whether it should have been run on oil or water, how, this doesn't work or that's inadequate, or simply the marvel of watching the spray of the water across the floor. This is very much how the novel works, and I think what we see in that is Adler's recording consciousness, his recording mentality, his urge to try to get every detail as precisely as possible, because that's his job, is to simply bear witness to this experience.